moving from methods to post method is quite interesting. This is a development in theory about methods and their use, because during the last century, by the end of the last century, somewhere in 1990s, the notion of methods came under severe criticism, because people thought that the notion of all-purpose methods, that means that a method could provide solutions to most of, if not all, the problems faced by learners or teachers in a language classroom. This simplistic or holistic claim by the proponents of various methods came under severe criticism, because people thought that this is not possible, or this has not been actualized in real classrooms. So people thought about the ineffectiveness of various methods, and in this regard, various criticisms were raised. We could see the language teaching overall almost was reluctant to regard methods as one of the key factors in the success or failure in a language teaching process. This led many people to call it a death of language methods and approaches, and the emergence of a post-methods era. Among the most important criticisms which were raised against methods is the one which is named as the top-down criticism. The methods usually prescribe things for the teachers and learners also. We see that method informs teachers that they need to do this or that. Similarly, the good teaching is thought to be the one which strongly adheres to the principles of that method. And therefore, the innovation among teachers especially is killed. And the overall role of a teacher in a classroom, even in those methods who claim to provide independence to the teacher and learner, is marginalized. We could also see that learners are also passive recipients in the methods scheme, because they are subject to certain activities based on the philosophy and approach of a particular method, and they have to adhere to it. They have to follow it. And teacher ensures that students follows if he is following a certain method. Therefore, the concept of learning centeredness or teacher creativity is usually ignored in the debate or in a classroom where a method is followed. And many critics of methods also believe that most of the methods remained less flexible or adaptive to learner needs in various contexts. Moving forward, the role of contextual factors is another point for criticism against the methods, because we could see that these methods claim that they could provide solutions to various problems in all contexts, and within those contexts, in almost all kinds of circumstances within a language classroom, which is actually too big a claim. This is not possible in real classrooms. We could see, because of this, various teachers would be tempted to ignore a careful consideration of the context of the learners. They would try to implement the method according to its spirit or principles, instead of looking into the contextual variations or needs of its learners. And this ignoring of the context not only involved the immediate learning context, which is the classroom context created by the learners and teachers themselves, it also ignores the overall social, political, and institutional context. And it is based on the assumptions about the various roles of teachers and learners, because various methods assume certain roles for both. And those roles are also assumed without considering the cultural variation of learners and teachers. For example, English is taught in various parts of the world, including Africa, Asia, and Europe. But the method would not include the variation among the learners before assigning the role to the teachers or their thoughts. Therefore, this might lead us to a kind of methodological imperialism or cultural imperialism based on methods. The process of curriculum development is also divorced from, or the methods, the use of methods is divorced from the process of curriculum development in typical second language context. And we could see many researchers recently have been raising their voices that the process of curriculum development should be attuned according to the curriculum development processes, and the method should be there to support that curriculum development process or the syllabus designing process. And they should not be method, in simple terms, method and curriculum development should not be divorced from each other for the better learning of the prospective learners. But we could see that in previous debates about the methods and their choices, the process of curriculum development was most of the times ignored. There is also a lack of research basis for the claims made by various methods. We could see most of the claims raised by, if not most, a significant number of the claims made by various methods were not actually based on some scientific research. And methods and their proponents usually assumed that they understand the process of language learning completely, which is actually not the case, because we can find that various claims and important theories or assumptions developed by various methods may not be based on the reality on the ground. Then there is a similarity of classroom practices as well. We could see that various classroom practices which we assume within a method do not exist in actual classrooms. So the method's total application is not there. Now moving beyond approaches and methods, we need to know, as a language teachers, the professionals need to know the effectiveness of various methods and approaches according to their use in a right context. It should not be like this, that every method can be applied everywhere, or any method can be applied everywhere. Rather, the teachers and the practitioners should become vigilant to apply a certain method or a certain component of a method in a certain situation which they think it may be useful in. Teachers in this way may develop their own personal approach, their eclectic approach. And while approaching such a decision, while making such a decision to develop their own approach, they might need to realize their own role in the process of learning, and then the nature of effective teaching and learning based on their experience and of own teaching, as well as the teaching in their immediate context. Then they should also realize about the difficulties of learners and the possible solutions to those difficulties in their context, and they need to be very creative and genuine while finding or deciding about such solutions. They should also focus on, keep an eye on the successful learning activities, and they should try to build on that, and they should also keep in mind the structure of an effective lesson, and they could imitate that while developing their own approach. So in the post-method era, we could see the teacher needs to be independent and creative while choosing a method for the language teaching. And in this era, teachers might decide a different approach which may take various clues from various methods at the same time.